You never forget the sound a deadbolt makes when it's locking you out of your own house. I was 14 years old, and it was January, one of those Midwestern nights where the cold feels like it's trying to skin you alive. I didn't have gloves. I didn't even have socks that matched. I had a backpack, $7.83, and a math test with a red F scribbled across the top. I hadn't even flunked the class, just one test. But that was all my parents needed. "Maybe you'll learn something on the streets," my dad shouted, red-faced, veins bulging like tree roots across his neck. My mom didn't say a word. She just folded her arms and looked at me like I was a stray dog tracking mud on her clean floors. They'd always hated how different I was. My brother Lucas, 2 years older, was the golden child. Varsity everything. Teachers loved him, neighbors bragged about him. I was the quiet one. The awkward one. The kid who got anxious during roll call and lived in the library. They used to say I was just sensitive. Then I became lazy. Then a waste of potential. It wasn't always like that. When I was really little, my mom would hum songs while brushing my hair. My dad used to take me to the park to feed the ducks. But that version of them vanished after Lucas started winning trophies. Every mistake I made after that became another reason I was falling behind. So when I came home that Tuesday with the failed test, they didn't ask questions. They didn't ground me. They didn't even yell at first. They just told me to pack my things. "You're not going to be a parasite in this house," my dad spat. My mom added quietly, "We gave you every chance." I remember stepping outside and hearing the lock click behind me. The first night, I slept behind a gas station dumpster. I wasn't brave. I wasn't street smart. I was just cold, hungry, and confused. I cried so hard I gave myself a nosebleed. By the third day, I learned how to sneak into the back of a closed fast food joint and take leftover bread buns from the trash before the morning staff arrived. I washed my face in a public restroom. I kept my backpack tied to my arm when I slept. I found a public library that opened at 9 a.m. I went there just to get warm, pretend I had somewhere to be. I'd sit at the computer for hours, typing nonsense into Word docs so people thought I was working. Then one day, I typed something real. How to make money online as a teenager. The search results were junk mostly. Surveys, spam, scams. But buried down the page, I found a forum for freelancers. Someone had posted about doing small graphic design gigs. Logos for $10. Banners for $5. I didn't know a damn thing about graphic design. But I figured out how to pirate Photoshop on the library computer, and I started watching YouTube tutorials like my life depended on it, because it did. For the next 4 months, I lived like that. Homeless. Invisible. Teaching myself. Failing forward. At night, I'd sit under a broken bus shelter and sketch out fake company names in a stolen notebook. I'd imagine websites, business cards, product tags. I started calling myself Jordan Wells Creative. Like I was some CEO already. One night, a woman saw me sketching logos outside a Walgreens. She asked if I could design a flyer for her dog grooming business. I charged her $10. She paid in cash. That was my first sale. That same night, I bought a blanket from a thrift store. My first real warmth in weeks. And as I lay on the floor of an abandoned bus station, I whispered something I still remember to this day. They threw me away. But I'm not garbage. I'm the damn gold they didn't want to dig for. You wouldn't think a library card could feel like a passport, but for me, it was. That plastic rectangle was my access to heat, free internet, and for 4 hours a day, a place where no one looked at me like I was contagious. I got to know the rhythms. The early morning regulars. The squeaky wheel on the third cart from the left. And the sound of Tasha's voice. She was the assistant librarian with dyed red tips and a different band t-shirt every day. She never asked why I wore the same hoodie every day. Never questioned why I lingered near the heater vents. Once, she even slid me a brown paper bag with a sandwich and said, "Leftovers." No eye contact. No pity. Just kindness. I started bringing a flash drive. I couldn't afford a laptop, but I could save everything onto that $4 piece of plastic like it was gold. By month 2, I was making about $40 a week doing little graphic gigs. Craigslist ads? Facebook event banners. I had no bank account, so I was doing everything via cash apps and e-gift cards. And then came Mr. Kellerman. Old dude. Quarter a pants. Carried a leather briefcase that looked older than me. We sat next to each other at the computer bank every Thursday. One day he leaned over and said, "You keep clicking like a coder but design like a marketer. What's your game, son?" I told him I was building a business. Left out the "I'm homeless" part. Turns out he used to teach business classes at the community college. Retired. Lonely. Still sharp as hell. Every Thursday, we started chatting. He taught me how to price my services better. How to make invoices. Even showed me how to create a basic contract template. I asked him one day why he was helping me. He said, "Because nobody ever helped me when I needed it most. And I regret that." That night, I cried in the bathroom stall until my nose bled again. But it wasn't sadness. It was the kind of cry that comes from being seen. Online, I met Damon. Username: Grind Theory. He messaged me after seeing the logo I posted on a forum. Said I had clean skills for a kid. I told him I was 17. Technically a lie, I was still 15. He didn't care. He gave me tips on pricing and even sent me a list of subreddits and gig sites where people actually paid better than peanuts. Damon wasn't rich. He flipped sneakers for money and made Shopify stores for clients. But he spoke to me like a peer. "You're not a beggar, bro. You're a builder," he said once. Charge like one. I raised my rates. Lost some clients. Gained better ones. By month 4, I'd saved over $600. I opened a teen checking account using a local shelter as my mailing address. They didn't know I'd never slept there. I just sat outside long enough to use their street number. I started showering at a YMCA, $5 a pop. Best investment of my life. One of my clients, a bakery owner, asked to meet in person. I panicked. What if she found out I was homeless? So I'd borrowed a blazer from Goodwill, stuffed tissue in the shoulders, and said I was just relocating from a small firm. She didn't blink. She handed me $100 in cash. "Cleanest menu design I've ever seen," she said. I went back to the bus shelter that night and stared at the money in my hand for 10 straight minutes. It smelled like cinnamon rolls. Like dignity. Like maybe this could work. It's wild how little things feel like huge wins when you're scraping the bottom. Like business cards. They came in a plain brown box. 50 of them. Jordan Wells Creative, logos, branding, digital assets. A minimalist black and white design with a QR code linking to a free portfolio page I'd coded myself. I paid $19.99 to print them. I kept them in a Ziploc bag because my backpack reeked like city rain and mildew. But when I handed one over, I felt like a king. It was Janine who gave me my first real retainer gig. She owned this little cafe called Bean Street, tucked between a failing yoga studio and a vape shop. She'd seen one of my flyers taped to a laundromat bulletin board. I'd printed and posted them myself. She asked me to design a chalkboard menu, then a loyalty card, then her social media content. Every Friday, she'd leave an envelope for me behind the counter. $250 cash. No questions. No small talk. Just respect. One afternoon, she pulled me aside and said, "You remind me of me when I started. Smart, hungry, and broke as hell." I laughed, but inside I wanted to cry. She didn't know the half of it. That same week, I had a run-in with a cop. I was sleeping behind the rail yard in an old shipping container. Not legal, not smart, but it had a door that shut and some insulation from the wind. Officer Malone found me during a routine patrol. I thought it was over. That I'd be tossed in juvie or worse. But he just looked around, flashlight low, and said, "You been doing anything stupid out here?" I shook my head. "Just sleeping, sir." Then he noticed the tablet in my lap, a cheap refurbished one I'd bought with my third gig. I was working on a t-shirt logo for a local band. He stared for a second. "You making art?" I nodded. He stepped back. "You know what?" I didn't see anything. "Just don't freeze to death, kid." And then he left. He didn't save me. But he didn't destroy me either. And sometimes that's enough. By month 7, things snowballed. I was charging $150 for logo packages. I learned how to run $5 Instagram ads that pulled in $200 gigs. I bought a second-hand Chromebook and started doing client calls from park benches using borrowed cafe Wi-Fi. I met Malik one night when I returned to the rail yard and found someone already inside my spot. We almost fought. But then we talked. He was 17, hustling custom sneakers out of his duffel bag. We ended up trading services. I designed his brand's logo, and he gave me a nearly new pair of Jordans in return. He said, "You've got the rich kid face. People trust you. Use it." I didn't know how to feel about that. But he wasn't wrong. That November, I made $5,137.24. I still slept outside some nights. Still hid my stuff in a busted vending machine shell near the train station. But for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was growing. I had clients across 5 states. A portfolio with over 60 completed jobs. A prepaid legal template for contracts. A savings balance that started with a 5. And I hadn't spoken to my parents in 284 days. Not that they ever called. But one day soon they would. And when they did, I wanted to be ready. Not with rage. Not with begging. With results. Because the next time someone said, "You'll never make it," I just point to my work. And let that speak louder than anything they ever screamed at me. By 17, I had a 1-bedroom apartment the size of a storage unit. The kitchen sink hissed every time I turned it on. My mattress sat directly on the floor. The windows rattled in the wind like they were trying to escape. But it was mine. No one could lock me out. No one could scream in my face about a test grade. No one could take my warmth away. I painted the walls dark gray. Bought LED strips off Amazon. Mounted my logo in vinyl letters over my desk. Wells.studio. I had rebranded, and I wasn't just making logos anymore. I was building brands for startups. Coaching other freelancers. I had 6 retainer clients, a stack of invoices, and a monthly income that looked surreal for a kid who once stole saltines from a gas station. And then one day, while checking email, I saw her name. Subject: "So proud of you." It was my mother. Not a letter. Not an apology. Not even a phone call. Just a message on LinkedIn. "Jordan! Wow, you've really grown. I was just showing your website to my friend from book club. We're all so impressed with what you've built. Dad says hi. Hope you're doing well." That was it. No mention of the night they threw me out. No. "Sorry for forcing you onto the streets." Just PR messaging. Like I was a stock they wanted to buy back into. I didn't respond. 2 days later, she followed up. "We were thinking of doing a family dinner next weekend. Lucas is in town. It'd be great to see you. Let me know." Lucas. The golden boy. The one they sacrificed me for. I googled him. He was working in marketing. Had 1,000 connections, a half-smile profile picture, and a girlfriend named Kate. Of course. I clicked around, then typed something else into the search bar. Professional confrontation tips. How to keep composure. Because suddenly, I knew exactly what I wanted. I said yes to dinner. Not because I wanted to reconnect, but because I wanted to remember. I wore a slim black button-down, pressed pants, and a simple silver chain. I looked like the successful son they pretended to raise. The restaurant was one of those suburban wine bistro spots where middle-aged people complain about kale being Too bitter. My mother stood when I walked in. Jordan! She beamed, arms open. I let her hug me. Didn't hug back. My father gave me a handshake, like a man meeting a banker. Lucas just smiled awkwardly. Look at you, my mom said, eyes scanning me like I was a product. You've really made something of yourself. No one asked how I got there. No one asked why I vanished at 14. They were just happy I was shiny now. They didn't want to talk about the rot. Then came the kicker. Jordan, my dad said over grilled salmon. Your story is honestly inspiring. We've been telling people about your business. Everyone's so impressed, and we'd love if you spoke at the community center next month. You know, as a local success story. My fork paused. You've been telling people? Of course, my mom said. You're part of our family legacy. Family legacy. I almost laughed. But I didn't. I sat up straighter. I'd be happy to speak, I said calmly. As long as I get to tell the full story. About how I was kicked out at 14. How I survived in abandoned buildings. How I built this business with no help. Should I bring photos? The silence was so sharp, you could have buttered it. My mom's smile melted like wax. My dad cleared his throat. Lucas looked down at his glass. We don't need to dwell on the past, my mom said. No, I said. But I do, the flyer said. From homeless to CEO, a local young man's inspiring journey. They put my face on it like I was some self-made Disney prince. As if I'd been forged in a warm, loving family who just believed in me. As if I hadn't eaten half a Pop-Tart from a trash bin the night before my first paid design gig. They slapped my logo in the bottom corner, like I was a product they were endorsing. They didn't ask. They just assumed. Because that's what they do. Assume they're always the heroes. Assume I'll play along. I didn't correct the flyer. Because they wanted a speech? Oh, I'd give them one. The event was at the local community center gym. The same one I wasn't allowed to go to for birthday parties because my parents couldn't trust me to behave. Funny how trust comes rushing back when there's applause on the table. Rows of folding chairs. A cheap podium. Tables of cookies, lemonade, and people who hadn't seen me since I had braces and a stutter. My mom wore pearls. Real ones, I think. My dad had on his tucked-in plaid like he was accepting a farmer's grant. Lucas wore a Patagonia vest and filmed everything like he was directing a documentary. When they called me up, my mom clapped first. That polite, performative clap that says, "Look, he made it, and we're obviously the reason." I took the mic and smiled. Hi. I'm Jordan Wells. That much, at least, they got right. I run Wells Studio. We help brands find their identity. But before that, I had to find my own. I didn't do that in a cozy house. I did it in a bus station, using public Wi-Fi and washing in a sink I didn't own. You could feel the room shift. People adjusting in their chairs like their pants got tighter. I was kicked out at 14. Not for anything criminal. Not for hurting anyone. For bad grades. I got a D in algebra and suddenly, I was a liability instead of a son. My mom's smile froze like a store mannequin that got unplugged. My first business card was printed at a library. My first gig was paid in coins and dog biscuits. I built a six-figure business while living in the shadows of this town. And I didn't get here because of warm family dinners or late-night pep talks. I got here because I had no choice. People were dead quiet. Except for one guy near the back who whispered, "Damn." I kept going. There are people in this room who smiled at my parents for raising such a hard-working young man. But you weren't there when I was sleeping in a rail yard. You weren't there when I taught myself design by watching 480p YouTube videos with stolen earbuds. You didn't see the cracked phone I used to invoice clients from a gas station parking lot. I looked at my dad. He shifted like his chair had grown spikes. And you know what? I'm not bitter. Because hardship teaches clarity. And here's what I learned. Success isn't inherited. It's hustled alone in the dark When everyone else thinks you're already done. A woman gasped. Another started clapping. Then another. Suddenly the whole middle row was on their feet. But my parents? Stone statues. Lucas? Still filming. Of course. He probably thought he could edit the speech later. I ended with, "Thanks for letting me share the truth. Not the polished version, the real one. Because if even one person here is in the dark right now, I want them to know you can build your own light." I walked off stage as the applause rose behind me. Some were clapping because they were proud. Some because they felt guilty. Some just because it felt safer than staying silent. My mom caught my arm before I reached the door. Her voice was tight, sugary poison in a whisper. "That wasn't fair." I leaned in. "Neither was that night you turned the lock, remember?" She blinked. Then let go. My dad didn't say a word. Lucas was already uploading the speech to Instagram. Caption: "My little brother. Inspiring." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the first time in years I didn't care what they called me. Little. Lost. Liar. Whatever. I walked out into the night like it owed me something. And for once it did. You'd think the silence after a mic drop would feel good. But it turns out, silence is just the inhale. The exhale? That's where the storm hits. By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone had 117 notifications. Some were from strangers. Some from kids I went to school with. Some from my parents. But the one that made me laugh? A LinkedIn message from Lucas. "Hey bro, your talk's blowing up. A couple of my clients saw it. Mind if I tag you?" "Sure, Lucas." Tag the trauma. Monetize the meltdown. By noon, the video had 20K views and counting. I didn't post it. Someone else did. The caption was blunt. "He told the truth. In front of everyone." And that's when the real calls started. First, my mom. Straight to voicemail. Then a text. "You humiliated us. We were trying to celebrate you. You made us look like monsters." I stared at the message. "No. Sorry. No. Let's talk." Just outrage. Like I'd scratched their reputation with a coin. Then my dad called. His voice was colder than the night he kicked me out. "You made us look like abusers. You think people want to do business with someone who badmouths their own family?" I didn't say anything. He added, "You better take it down. Before we take legal steps." Legal steps? Like the night I was a minor sleeping in a park bench didn't count as a legal issue? But what hit harder was the Facebook post. My mom posted a long, rambling paragraph. Something about private matters, miscommunication, and how parenting isn't perfect. Then she wrote, "Some people rewrite the past when they don't want to face their own failures." The post had 84 likes. Church people. Former PTA moms. The same ones who used to whisper about how troubled I was. But the comments, oh, the comments. Emma G., my 8th grade science lab partner. "We all knew what you did. Y'all never even came to Jordan's parent-teacher nights." Mr. Daniels, my old math teacher. I offered tutoring. Jordan came. You didn't. Then, the truth always leaks. Whether you like it or not. That comment got pinned. Not by me. By Lucas. Maybe even he saw through the charade finally. That night, I didn't post a response. No thread. No subtweet. Just silence. Instead, I sat at my desk, the same desk I bought with my first real paycheck, and opened a blank document. And I wrote a letter. Not to them. To me. To the boy with the $7.83 and a failing math test. To the kid who stared through a rain-covered window wondering if he really was worthless. To the boy who taped his shoes with duct tape and called it style. Dear Jordan, 14. You won't believe me, but you're going to make it. You're going to eat real food. Sleep in a bed. Build a brand. You're going to be called sir and boss and visionary. And none of it will come from the people you thought were supposed to love you. They'll vanish. Then reappear. Then try to claim you like a lost lottery ticket. But you'll hold your ground. You won't scream. You won't beg. You'll outgrow them so much they'll look up at you and pretend it was always this way. It wasn't. You know that. And now the world does too. Stay sharp. Stay kind. And never stop designing your own story. Love. You. I printed the letter. Folded it. Taped it to the inside of my closet door. So I'd see it every morning. So I'd never forget how far I came. There's a special kind of insult that comes from someone trying to profit off the pain they caused you. I thought the LinkedIn tags were bad. The Facebook post? Whatever. But when I got a message from Mrs. Crawford, our old church secretary, my jaw actually dropped. Jordan, just a heads up. Your mom and dad are planning to speak at this year's harvest banquet. They're calling it a talk about forgiveness and family success. You're listed in the program. Thought you should know. She even sent a screenshot. The Wells family, reconciliation and the power of parenting. Reconciliation? They hadn't spoken to me in 2 weeks, unless you count threats and guilt-tripping. Power of parenting? More like the power of locking a kid out over a math grade. I stared at that image and felt something go cold in my chest. They were writing a fairy tale, with my name as the happy ending. And they were going to collect donations off it. No. Not again. I made 3 calls that afternoon. To Damon, my old online friend, now co-founder of a fintech startup. To Janine, my first ever client. To a business attorney named Carla Wynn. I told her everything. The speech. The backlash. The flyer. The event. The attempt to repurpose my story for clout and coin. She didn't blink. You've built a personal brand. You've filed your LLC, yes? I nodded. Wells' studio was fully legal. Then it's time we protect your name like a trademark. Let's write a cease and desist. You'll serve it personally or by mail, your call. I chose personally. The envelope was heavy in my hand. Cream cardstock. Legal letterhead. Neatly typed. Basically said, use my name, likeness, or story again, and you'll meet my lawyer, not my voice. But before I sent it, I drove to their house. The one I used to call home. The one I was locked out of at 14. It still looked the same. Same garden gnomes. Same cracked driveway. Same sense of being uninvited. My dad opened the door. He looked older. Smaller. My mom appeared behind him, arms crossed like a defense attorney in a soap opera. I handed over the envelope. What's this now? My dad asked. A boundary, I said. And the last time you'll ever use my name without permission. He started to say something. My mom interrupted. We were just trying to fix things. We thought. I cut her off. No. You thought you could rewrite the story while skipping the chapters where you failed me. You thought success erases scars. It doesn't. You thought the crowd clapping meant they forgave you. They didn't. I'm not your redemption arc. She opened the letter. Skimmed it. Her face changed. You're threatening your own family? I took a breath. No. I'm protecting what I built when I had no family. I walked away. They didn't follow. They didn't yell. They didn't slam the door. They just stood there. And that silence? It didn't hurt anymore. It felt like freedom. That night, I posted a single tweet. Your story is yours. Guard it like it's sacred. Because to someone else, it's just content. It went viral. Again. But this time, I didn't feel exposed. I felt insulated. Because now, no one could take it from me. Not legally. Not emotionally. Not ever again. It's strange how peace doesn't arrive with fireworks. No dramatic music. No final boss fight. It's quiet. Like waking up and realizing you're no longer angry. Just done. I signed the lease to my first real studio on a rainy Tuesday. 1,200 square feet of exposed brick, dusty windows, and possibility. Wells. Studio, now with a front door I owned. I hired 2 interns. Both were 17. One had dropped out. The other lived with her grandmother and coded websites between shifts at a donut shop. I didn't care about resumes. I cared about hunger. I recognized that look in their eyes, the mix of fear and fire. The same one I used to see every time I passed my reflection in a gas station window. I didn't hear from my parents again. Not after the cease and desist. Not after the fundraiser got cancelled. Not after the whispers started floating around church groups and neighborhood watch meetings. Apparently I had changed. Became cold. Lost my sense of family. No. I found it. Just not in them. That winter, I did something they never saw coming. I launched the 14 project. A scholarship? Small at first, $500 grants for teens kicked out, abandoned, or overlooked. No GPA requirements. No essays about how you overcame. Just one question: what do you want to build, and why? The first recipient was a 15-year-old girl named Sammy. She wanted to start a pet photography business. She reminded me of myself. Awkward. Brilliant. Undervalued. I gave her $500 and a used Nikon. 2 months later, she had 40 bookings. 3 months later, she had a logo. Designed by Wells Studio. I started speaking again. But not for crowds of people who used to ignore me. Not for galas or fundraisers or stage lights. I spoke at shelters. At youth centers. At night classes where the kids sat slumped from working back-to-back shifts. My message was simple. You're not broken. You're just unfinished. Don't let people label you before you're even done becoming. Sometimes people cried. Sometimes they just nodded like, yeah, okay. Maybe. But one time, a boy waited until everyone left and said, you said you slept behind a restaurant once. Which one? I told him. He smiled. I'm behind the Dunkin' by the bridge. Just for now. I reached into my pocket and gave him a business card. Not for work, I said. For proof. That you're not staying there forever. I don't keep old photos from my childhood. There weren't many to begin with. But I do keep one thing. That first business card. Ziploc bag, wrinkled corner, typo in the email. It reminds me that nothing perfect ever starts perfect. It starts in pieces. And you either build with those pieces, or let them bury you. I chose to build. And when people asked me now, do you ever miss them? Your parents? I smile. Because I know what they really mean. They mean, do you regret being honest? Do you ever wish you let them rewrite your story, just to keep the peace? And the answer is always the same. No. Because peace that requires pretending isn't peace. It's prison.